Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, specialists in downsizing and seniors residences.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed. My name is Matt Delvecchio, specializing in life transitions, downsizing in the senior living industry.
And I'm Corrie, a clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss.
Coming right up on the first half of today's show, back to school like no other. Masks, vaccinations, ventilation, in-class versus virtual. These are all anxiety-inducing issues affecting kids and parents and teachers as we head into the new school year. Well, we're going to be discussing this next. Talking about school, Corrie, you are a professor at McGill, and you're going back to teaching in person, I understand.
I am. This Wednesday will be the first day of classes, and I will be there, mask on and mask on, mask off. I will be there, and as I'm looking forward to seeing the students and getting back into the classroom, no question, there's anxiety there.
Yeah, anxiety there. And I was going to say, yeah, it's going to be a unique dynamic. And it's strange to say going to school in person tied with unique dynamic. It's really amazing. Yeah. And yes, there are a few anxious and a lot of anxious, not just students, but parents and professors like yourself, I'm sure. Corrie, what do we have coming up on the second half?
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but have you ever heard of cosplay? Well, we're going to be talking about that. There are 3 sisters from Montreal that have actually gained international recognition for their costumes and appearances at conferences. They even have a YouTube channel. Well, you must stick around. You'll learn all about it after the 3:30 news.
Yeah, quite interesting. Corrie, you and I were there. Cosplay, what is that? And apparently we are in the minority. So that's going to be coming up after 3:30. Going to be an interesting segment there. But first, all right, Carol Heffernan. She's the Assistant Director General of the Lester B. Pearson School Board. The board, by the way, has 25,000 students and 55 schools, which consist of elementary schools, secondary schools, and adult and vocational centers. And we're going to be talking about heading back to school in the times of COVID and vaccines and this fourth wave that we're into. Carol, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you for having me, Matt and Corrie. I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you for coming on. You are one busy person. There's no doubt about it. So we appreciate your time here on a Saturday. Now, things are changing almost daily, including masks. A lot of things were implemented regarding provincial protocols. So first of all, can you give us an update on masks and what's the board's position regarding masks?
Yes, Matt. So I don't know if you remember, in the month of June, the Minister of Education had mentioned that when we returned to school in the month of August, that there would be no masks. That changed August 11th when the minister said the students would be wearing masks, but just in the hallways and common areas, not in classrooms. This past week, they've come out with a new protocol, which is similar to what we've been doing for most of last year. Students will be wearing masks throughout the school day inside their classrooms. When they're in gym or when they're eating their lunches, their snacks, they're able to take the masks off, though.
All right. And just to remind, I guess, when you're speaking, Carol, I guess you're referring mostly to elementary and secondary level schools, right?
Elementary, secondary, but we have about 5,000 students who are in our adult and vocational centers. So they're anyone from age 16 up, and it's similar to a CJAD or a university. So those students will be wearing masks as well.
All right.
As Corrie mentioned, it's new for all the for McGill and all the CJAD students going back. But you have to remember, we've been doing this for the past year, so our students are a bit more accustomed to wearing masks, and our teachers as well have been wearing masks for the past year.
Fair enough. I'm curious, given that, what's the feedback you're getting from the parents regarding the mask wearing?
I have to say the majority of parents had a huge sigh of relief when they heard that their students would be wearing masks. So overall, it's been a lot of positive feedback that the students are going back wearing masks in their classrooms.
Well, it's good to hear. I'm sure there are going to be some parents that are worried about their kids with masks all day long, but I think, like you say, the majority of parents are all for this. We're talking with Carol Heffernan, Assistant Director General of the Lester B. Pearson School Board. And you know, your school board, Carol, was one of the leaders recognizing the importance of ventilation. And so what steps are being taken to improve ventilation in your schools, which is a huge issue regarding COVID and the pandemic?
You're right. The ventilation in schools is very important. went onto the minister's radar probably midwinter last year. Just to give you some background, last year our engineers were reading a lot of information coming out of Harvard, back to school, and Yale, and Berkeley. And what they were leading towards is having HEPA air purifiers in naturally ventilated classrooms. So just to give a bit of a ventilation background, your building is either naturally ventilated, which means it gets fresh air from opening doors and windows, or it's mechanically ventilated. So something like the Bell Center, you don't have windows windows open, so they would be mechanically ventilated. All year long, we can bring in fresh air from the outside in a mechanically ventilated building. So what we've done is continue the fresh air during the winter time and upgraded filters. But what we realized is that it might not be completely realistic when it's minus 30 to ask teachers and students to have the windows wide open during the day. So we ended up buying HEPA air purifiers and had them installed last November. So we were fortunate to have those protecting our students and our staff all last year.
It's very encouraging to hear that. And I think that I imagine a lot of parents and even the kids coming back are encouraged to hear that. You had to become a bit of an expert in all of the ventilation systems and protocols, I suppose, given the current circumstances. So I want to go back to the parents and the kids that I imagine might be apprehensive and nervous about going back to the classrooms. Like you said, they're relieved that now there's the mask protocol coming into effect. How about giving some recommendations for those parents and kids?
You're right, Corrie. Going back, you remember your first day at school, you're going back to McGill. It's stressful at the best of times, and returning during a global pandemic can increase the students' anxiety. So we recommend teachers have open conversations with their kids. Parents have open conversations with their kids and discuss any concerns they have, but remind them that we already have a full year of these protocols under our belts. We did this all of 2021. We know what to do. Our teachers are professionals, and we've got this. So just remember to stay at home if you're sick, get vaccinated if you're eligible, wear your mask, and get ready to meet a lot of new friends, greet your old ones, and have a great year of learning.
You know, you've also mentioned in the past parents and the reaction of parents. Corrie, you and I have talked about this on the show as well. The kids sort of feed off either the anxiety or the calmness of the parents. So parents do play a crucial role with the kids going back, don't they, Carol?
You're absolutely right. So we want to tell them it's not parents as well. It's natural to feel anxious, but just remain calm and don't project your anxieties onto your child, because most of the children that we've spoken to, the students, I have a child going back to school. I have 4 kids and all 4 are going back, but in different levels. And most of them are excited to see their friends. And again, we did this last year, so it's going to be like going back in the month of June. Except with better suntan.
But I love what you're saying. I have to tell you, I love what you're saying because it's so important. For me, this is a grand opportunity to build resilience and to say, hey, you're nervous. What are ways that you've handled things that have made you nervous in the past? We can also use this as a great learning opportunity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Carol Heffernan we're talking to, the Assistant Director General of the Lester B. Pearson School Board, shedding some light on new protocols and also giving some great words of advice for kids and parents and, of course, teachers. Now, Carol, I know extracurricular activities are so good for the kids. And what are the rules and protocols regarding those?
That's a great. Some of the things that we're excited about going back to school this year is last year from our K-4, so we have 4-year-old kindergartens, up to grade 8, the students were in every single day. But our students in grade 9, 10, and 11 were alternating days. So one day on, one day off, just to reduce the amount of people in the buildings. This year, they're in every single day, which is wonderful. We're able to reopen our cafeterias, which, again, gives a greater sense of school and environment. And we're allowed to run extracurriculars. So what the ministry has told us, there will be a list, and I believe it's will be available this weekend, of what extracurricular students can participate in if they're not vaccinated. If you are fully vaccinated and you're searching over with your vaccination passport, you can get back onto the hockey and soccer and football and chess clubs, etc.
Well, okay, that makes sense. So let's also ask about how the teachers are feeling about, what's the sense of how the teachers are feeling about the return to the classroom?
We've spoken to a lot of the teachers and, of course, the teachers' unions, and I think they were the ones standing up and cheering the most when the ministry came out with their announcement this week that the students would be wearing masks, because as we know, the students in elementary schools are majority not vaccinated because they're less than 12. During the past week, they've been back at work, they've been doing training, reviewing different protocols, getting their classrooms ready, and making sure they're ready to greet their students. They're excited for the new school year, a bit apprehensive like everyone is in every year. But again, they've done this. They spent a year teaching during COVID. So they say they're ready to go.
Well, it's good. It's a great, and I would imagine a lot of people, like you say, the kids are looking forward to see their friends, and I'm sure the teachers are looking forward to seeing some of the students, although probably the guard is up a little bit at the beginning of the school year, no doubt. Now, Carol, we have to head out to a traffic update. However, a very hot topic is vaccinations and vaccines, and we're hearing more and more companies and corporations mandating it. We're hearing the government and healthcare, and we'd like to get your perspective on the school board's position regarding vaccines, and should the government mandate full vaccinations for students 12 plus and the employees in every single student, which also would include employees such as the caregiver, not the caregivers, but the custodians, not just teachers, but everyone who enters the building and is working. It is a hot topic. We want to get your opinion on that.
Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Flora Lee Senior Residences. Always there for you. Safe, reassuring, and comforting. We call it home.
Welcome back. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corrie Sirota, along with my co-host Matt Del Vecchio, and we are clearly, if you heard the song, we're talking about going back to school with Carol Heffernan, the Assistant Director General of the Lester B. Pearson School Board. There's a big point of contention here. I don't know that there's a right answer for it, but I'm going to ask for your help, Carol. What's the school board's position regarding vaccines? Should the government mandate full vaccination for students 12 plus and all the employees? What's your take on it?
We would like to see everyone vaccinated, but I believe it's more of a complex issue. You have a teacher shortage across Quebec. With one study I read there, the French sector is missing 900 teachers. So if you're to look at mandating everyone to be vaccinated, we would be losing some teachers, from what I understand, and that would only exacerbate the staff shortages across the province. I believe La Presse had an article yesterday saying that approximately 96% of teachers are saying right now they're already received their 2 vaccinations. So I don't know if it's the same issue as in the health sector, where I believe it was 80% were vaccinated. I don't know if the education sector has higher vaccination rates. Regarding students, we have the teachers talking to them, and we have every secondary school being visited in the month of September by the CJAD to have whoever hasn't been vaccinated or hasn't had their second vaccination being offered their second vaccination. So it's quite a bit of work with the principals and the teachers to encourage the unvaccinated to get vaccinated, and just to show them the science and the literacy behind the literature behind it, so that they realize it's going to save them and it might save someone else at the same time.
Yeah, it makes sense what you're saying. Should be a simple issue, but it is very complex, like you're saying, and bringing up a good point about potential staff shortages. The healthcare sector is dealing with the same thing with nurses. Even if it is 2 or 3% that may, in fact, end up losing their job, that's still a big void to fill. So good on you for taking some proactive initiatives in the Lester B. Pearson School Board and trying to educate, which is probably the best way to handle these situations. Now, Carol, just before our traffic update, we were talking about teachers sort of being the unsung heroes, and there's another group of unsung heroes that very rarely gets talked about, and I know you wanted to talk about them. It's the daycare educators at the schools. Can you share a little bit of information about these true heroes and what they have done already and what they will be doing?
Thank you, Matt. I would like, there's so many people working in an educational system. People don't realize we have integration aides helping students in the schools. We have psychologists, speech therapists, librarians, caretakers. Of course, our principals who run around, the magic fairies behind everything, making sure everything runs. But in particular, the daycare educator, these are the people that are in the schools at 7 a.m. to greet elementary students as they're dropped off and the parents go off to work. And at nighttime, the parents are picking them up at 6 p.m. So they have a long day. They're very kind. They're helping out the students and encouraging them. And what people don't realize, during the initial lockdown back in March 2020, when everyone else was told stay at home, do not leave, except if you're an essential service worker, our daycare educators were actually at work every day, taking care of the children of hospital workers and other essential workers. So this is a group of people that have to be recognized, and they're very valuable employees. When you think about it takes a village to raise a child, you have to realize a lot of those villagers are in the educational community.
Without a doubt. So really, thank you for raising that and putting that on our agenda today, because I think you're right. There's not enough recognition for all the supplemental educational people who are our support workers who are part of the education system. So now I want to ask you something. I'm a little curious about the fact that I had read somewhere that there's an increase in failure rates, and that could be, I don't know. Well, I mean, maybe you'll tell me why, but I wondered if that were the case, what measures might be taken by the Lester B. Pearson School Board to minimize failure rates.
Excellent question, Corrie. We had the ministers brought it up a couple of times, and I read another article this week in La Presse saying that a lot of the French school boards have seen upticks in dropout rates and failure rates. We've gone back on all of our statistics, and we haven't seen that. And I have to give kudos to our employees, because during last year, they reached out to students who seem to start having mental health issues or were struggling a bit in school. And we'll continue to do that this year. There's been some training this past week, and there'll be training over the next couple of weeks as students return, just with the teachers, to make sure that they can recognize the students who might be struggling or have fallen behind. Because we're educating the whole child. It's not just for them to learn their math and their history and their other subjects. We need their bodies healthy, and we need their minds healthy. So there's a lot of work that's been put in with our professionals and with our teachers that'll be done over the next couple of months, just to help students to be the best they can be this year.
That's great to hear. That's Carol Heffernan from the Lester B. Pearson School Board. And, even Corrie, you were mentioning as a professor at McGill, there's I guess, certain protocols that are you're trying to work with students in this, I suppose, integration period, haven't you? And I'm wondering, Carol, your perspective on that as well. But Corrie, what have you had to do as a professor at McGill?
Well, it was very clear that we received very detailed requests, essentially, or suggestions around kind of cutting the students some slack, recognizing that maybe attendance might not be as perfect as we thought, or again, going back to what you were saying, Carol, about the mental health of everybody coming back and trying to navigate the system. We've been asked to look at our assignments and the caseload of workload, et cetera, et cetera. So have you had those kinds of discussions as well?
Absolutely. And one thing that we're very hopeful for this year is we had about 700 students last year who were on the online academy. So teachers and professionals, we had psychologists working with students on the online academy as well, but we're not seeing as many going on to the online academy this year. We imagine it's because of the vaccination rate so much higher. So if you have someone that you're living with that and was immunocompromised, they've been vaccinated so they can come back to school. So the teachers are also happy about this, because now they can see the students. So when you're on Zooms with students, you can't necessarily pick up some of the visual cues, but now they're going to be in the classroom. So we're really looking forward to seeing them and see how we can help them even more. And we do have different protocols in place.
Well, that's wonderful. You know what? I think in general, a lot of people are looking forward to getting back together, try to get some semblance of normalcy. Carol, we want to thank you very much for coming on the air here on a Saturday. We know you're extremely busy, and we want to wish you a great year.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's going to be a good year. We've got this. So let's just have our students come
that's
back.
right.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful. It's Carol Heffernan, Assistant Director General of the Lester B. Pearson School Board, joining us here on Life Unrehearsed. Corrie, what do we have coming up on the second half here?
Have you ever heard of cosplay? Well, three sisters have gained international recognition for their costumes and appearances at conferences, even their YouTube channel. You have to stick around and learn more about this. That's coming up after the 3:30 CTV News update.